do our best.
Hello. Thank you for tuning in to this primary election candidates forum for Legislative District 35 Candidates Position 2. The forum is presented by the League of Women Voters of Thurston County and TCTV. The League is a nonpartisan citizens organization that encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in government. The League is open to anyone of voting age. I'm Rita Robison. I'm a League member, and I'll be moderating this forum. The candidates for Position 2 in the 35th Legislative District are Jeff Davis, Glenn Gaither, Drew McEwen, and Linda Ring Erickson. The 35th Legislative District includes all of Mason and portions of Kitsap, Thurston, and Grays Harbor counties. The candidates will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. Then I'll ask questions of the candidates in alternating order. The person asked the question will have 2 minutes for a response, followed by 1 minute from the other candidates. There will be 1 minute for closing statements at the end. We'll begin with opening statements from the candidates, beginning with Jeff.
Thank you, Rita. My name is Jeff Davis, and I'm obviously here hoping to take this candidacy. And there's several things that I've found out while campaigning in the last several months. Initially, this campaign, and it continues to be a campaign about jobs. People are hurting out there right now, and we need to have all of the opportunities available for the state, Washington state citizens, so that they can have the opportunities to have a good working job, so that we can all prosper and have healthy communities here. As a Port Commissioner, I've worked on these efforts here in Thurston County to bolster up our community colleges, try to bring businesses and small corporations and manufacturing into the area, and I think we've had a tremendous amount of success doing that. So the skill set that I bring to this position and the understanding of putting people back to work, I think is going to be paramount as we move forward, not just in this election, but as we address the needs in the state of Washington to try to make sure that we have a healthy and prosperous economy. And with that also comes tax revenue that's generated in the local area too. And this, of course, helps our schools, our roads, builds the infrastructure that we need so we can get back on pace to be a world-class, not just country, but state as well. As a father of 2 kids, wonderful kids that attend our public school systems, I'm deeply concerned about the cuts that have been made to the education system. I think that's something that we have to address over the long term as we start looking at the issues that are going to be facing us budgetary-wise in the next several years in the state. With that comes fiscal responsibility as well. I have championed several different concepts at the Port of Olympia as we move forward to make sure that we have been fiscally responsible, get our budget back on track, make sure that we're profitable so that we can do the type of services that we provide for the community. With that comes a long tradition of service that I feel like has been passionate about for quite some time. My concerns over the long term, as I previously stated, are deep, and a lot of that comes with the notion of where are we going as a country and where are we going as a state. And if we don't address these in the short term, I'm unfortunately afraid that our long term may be, we're in for some very more tough times as we move forward. I guess the last thing I'll also say is our environment is deeply important to us. If we don't start addressing the environmental concerns that we have out there for future generations, I fear that we're going to have more collapse than we've already had. So that's why I'm running. I look forward to your vote.
Thank you. Glenn?
My name is Glenn Gaither. I'm also running for Position 2 in the 35th District. I'm a husband, a father of 4 children, all under the age of 12 right at the moment. And for me, there's a lot of days I wake up and I look at the clock and the calendar and the amount of work that I have to do in my regular life just to make ends meet. And I think to myself, well, geez, you know, what's it going to be like 10, 15 years down the road from now when my children get out there into this environment? I agree with Jeff. You know, jobs in the economy should be job number 1. I didn't see that happen in this last legislative session that we had. They were focused on other issues. I thought that the budget and the economy would be like the very first thing running right out of the gate that they'd be working on, and they didn't do that. They ended up doing that in a special session on the very last day. I think the best way to grow jobs in the private sector is through small business. You know, the governor said 2 years ago that, look, 75% of all of our new jobs are going to come out of the small business sector. So what are we doing to promote that? What are we doing to get entrepreneurs up off the couch, because they're looking at the thing and saying, well, hey, you know, I'd like to start a small business, but it's going to cost X amount of dollars more due to excessive government regulation and taxes. And so I think what we should do, and Idaho's doing this and invited businesses from Washington State to come over to there and say, hey, let's give somebody that's starting a brand new business 3 years tax grace, no taxes for any new business for 3 years. Let's see if we can start getting those jobs going. The second thing I'm really concerned with is our education system. I've got a lot of guys that I deal with on a daily basis in the prison system that have graduated for high school and can barely read. And as far as math goes, that's a foregone conclusion. These guys are in their early 20s. So they haven't graduated like, you know, 30, 40 years ago. These are guys just freshly coming out of the education system. I think we need to focus more on the basics of reading, writing, math, you know, push sciences and make sure that we bring kids up to a standard. I like to see like a 90% graduation rate in our public schools, because we can do that in the private sector for some reason. And the last thing that a lot of people don't talk about, that's an issue that I'm concerned with a lot and see on a daily basis, is the amount of drugs coming into our communities. You know, we have the cartels set up in Thurston County distributing through other gangs such as the Sureños, Norteños, MS-13, and La Fuma, and they're targeting kids in the middle schools, they're targeting them in the high school. And this last Memorial Day weekend is a prime example of what happens when we have that level of permissiveness and we don't take the time to address that issue.
Thank you. Drew?
Thank you, Rita, and thank you, League of Women's Voters, for hosting this today. Appreciate it. And my name is Drew McEwen. I'm running, as everyone is here, for the House in the 35th District, Position 2, and I'd appreciate your vote. I was born and raised in the Midwest and moved out here in 1994, courtesy of the U.S. Navy. I went through their nuclear propulsion program, served on the submarines USS Nevada and USS Florida out of Bangor. When I got out of the Navy, I entered the business field and 2001 resigned and started my own company, and the timing on that was not very good. It was right before 9/11, but I learned some hard lessons through that, and one of them is perseverance and working hard. And I look back on that as a very valuable experience. The way I got my company through that was taking a factory job, working at 10 at night to 6 in the morning, riding my bike down to the office, sleeping on the floor for 2 hours, and hitting the phone. And I'm proud of that. And here we are 11 years later, still in business. And we need to take the job creation and make that happen in this state. We have 3 key things before us right now. One, of course, is the jobs in the economy. We need to get the regulatory and the tax burden off of businesses so that they can grow. That is the answer to our revenue issues in this state. The people of the state of Washington provide more than enough revenue. The answer isn't in taxing and feeing them more. The answer is in growing the business base. Number 2, well, these are all equally important, education. 59 cents out of every dollar right now makes it into the classroom. That figure needs to be a lot higher. And I will work diligently to ensure that we do not place unfunded mandates on our local school districts, and we can increase the amount of money going directly into the classroom. And lastly, reforming state government. State government should only be involved in essential services. We have a constitutional duty to ensure that we fully fund education first, the public safety, and protecting the most vulnerable. Everything below that is on the table. We have 986 items in the budget, agencies in the budget right now. That's a pretty high number. There is room to trim, and again, we grow the tax base. It answers our questions, and we can move this state forward and make it the most competitive, and most importantly for us, the 35th District, creating more jobs. So again, my name is Drew McEwen, and I appreciate your vote.
Thank you. Linda?
My name is Linda Ring Erickson, and I'm a candidate here in the 35th District also. I grew up here in the 35th District, and my parents grew up in the 35th District as well. My father went to work in the coal mines in Tono when he was 10 years old to support his widowed mother and younger brothers and sisters, and he had a really hard time as a child. He was lucky. When he was a little bit older, he was a prize fighter, and somebody took a liking to him and got him a good union job, an apprenticeship in the Carpenters Union. It made a difference in his life, and it certainly made it possible for me to have the childhood that I did. I want for our young people in the 35th District to have to be able to make good choices and have opportunities and not go through the tough times that my father did. Unfortunately, my father died before he could help me get a good job, and I had to struggle as a teenager to make ends meet. I was unemployed and underemployed, and that ended up taking me out of the 35th District for a number of years. I believe that this campaign is about jobs. It's about keeping the jobs we have. It is about attracting new jobs that pay good wages and are companies that want to make an investment in our area, not just come in and leave us with a mess. And I believe it is also about jobs for the future, training our workforce through support for our technical and four-year colleges so that we can attract new businesses in the future. About 75% of all of our new jobs will come from small local businesses that start here. And we need to look at thoughtfully how we help the 35th District do that. We need to protect our natural environment, and we need to work on getting the transportation systems in place to support our new jobs. I thank you. My name is Linda Ring Erickson, and I thank you for your vote.
Now we'll start with the questions, and the first one will go to Glenn. Washington State could be facing another $1 billion plus revenue shortfall next biennium. Are you willing to raise revenue? If yes, please explain how. If not, will you be advocating cuts to social service, education, or corrections?
Okay, first of all, I'm not a new tax guy. You know, a few years back, we had a budget surplus with fewer taxes, fewer fees, and at a lower cost. So a big part of the thing, and I can see this as a state employee, is that we need to streamline government. We don't need to cut social services necessarily, but we need to look at how to make it a lot more efficient. It is grossly inefficient. State government is not always as transparent and as accountable as it could be. We see things in my job where we're going, oh, geez, why are we spending $3 million to repave a section of the institution when the road's in perfectly good shape? And the answer that comes back is, well, geez, we have to spend that money now, we're going to lose it. You know, let's keep more of the money in the general fund and reprioritize government. Let's look at what's really critical at this time. You know, I think that if we get those jobs going and we get people out there that have a little bit of faith in the economy and a little bit of faith in their future and what's going to happen as far as their income, they're going to start spending money again. That will raise the revenues.
Thank you. Drew?
Thank you, Rita. I'm adamantly opposed to any new tax or fee. The people of the state of Washington provide more than enough revenue. The issue is not in the revenue that is coming into the state. We can make that larger by increasing the business base and increasing the tax base. The issue is that the legislature has decided that they need to spend more than the people of the state are willing to give. And I will oppose any increase to any tax or fee in this state. We need to, again, get the regulatory environment as such that we can grow the business base, which will generate more jobs and more revenue, and we can solve these problems without imposing more hardship on our citizens.
Thank you. Linda?
Okay, these are difficult questions. There's no, I don't think, straightforward, simple answer. As a county commissioner in Mason County for the last 7.5 years, we've faced budget shortfalls and had to make both cuts and also look at new revenues. I think there are a couple areas that I find very interesting. One is asking that for services that we calculate and know the full cost of those services and charge for those services appropriately so that that burden isn't transferred onto the other taxpayers. I am willing to look at increased revenue for social services. The impacts of, for example, closing wards at Western State Hospital are huge in terms of the human cost as well as the cost to communities to protect victims and to keep the people that are released from being further victimized. So I think we've got some smart people that have been working on this already. I think that more local control, more local government decisions is an opportunity to look for ways that communities can solve their own problems. And I would support greater revenue flexibility for local government.
Thank you. Jeff?
Well, I believe the question is one of, are you willing to look at new taxes in the area, released in the state? And the fact of the matter is we've been cutting $10 billion from the budget for the last 8 years. revenue streams have not increased coming into the general budget. And so when we start addressing issues of social services, or at least ways that we enhance our quality of life, I'm greatly concerned about where we're heading in the state. So from my perspective, all revenue streams need to be addressed and at least be put on the table. We can't keep cutting our way out of this budget. All of us know our property values have gone down, and that's had a direct reflection on some of the local communities, which means they've had to go to the state to have that assistance from even our basic services such as fire and police, all the way down to our education system. So it's up to government to have a strong budget. Any person that manages their own household knows that there's only so much you can continue to cut before you have to actually go out there and find another revenue stream. So from my perspective, all options need to be put on the table. All issues as far as revenue streams need to be addressed, and we need to look at that with a sincere concern of how that doesn't just hurt individuals and even corporations, but moreover, what are we doing if we don't to protect the citizens of the community? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with our next question, we'll start with Drew. All-day kindergarten failed to pass the legislature in the last session. Would you vote for all-day kindergarten in the next session? Why or why not?
Again, looking at our state constitution and our mandate to fully fund K-12 education, that's an easy answer, and that's yes. Our society has changed. We are teaching 21st century kids using 20th century methods with a 19th century funding model. We need to change that system. It's not going to happen overnight. I do favor all-day kindergarten, and as part of the K-12 constitutional mandate, and we'll work to do that. And we can do that without compromising other areas in education. Again, I'd go back to 59 cents out of every dollar actually makes it to the classroom. We can increase that figure, and I think all-day kindergarten is an important part of that. It gives them the essential tools to have the foundation, to have a high-quality education for the next 12 years. And I'd rather see us concentrate on making them ready throughout that entire time than compromising somewhere else, so yes.
Thank you.
I support all-day kindergarten, and I would vote for all-day kindergarten. Educational research strongly indicates that children do better when they have early access to appropriate education. And we're losing out. Our kids are not doing as well as kids in other parts of the United States, nor are they doing as well as children in other parts of the world. And part of that has to do with the fact that we need to get early childhood education. We need to support it. We need to strengthen it and back it with the research that's been available for a long time. It's going to take a commitment. I don't know that there is enough money around to necessarily fund all the things we'd like to fund right now. But you know what? Education is the most important thing, and we're going to be attracting new jobs and become a workplace of the future if we do a proper job of educating our children.
Thank you. Jeff?
Yes. Short answer is yes. I do favor funding pre-K all-day kindergarten. The caveat to that is, though, there has to be an education element to it. It's not just one to where it's a place for a playground. All studies show that children before kindergarten that have that early education element to it do succeed better through our K through 12 programs. So instituting something like that is not just beneficial to the students, but the backstory to that also is it also frees up the individual mothers that are trying to go out there and go to work. So many people that I meet at the door, and I think that this is a problem that's prevalent today, is they can pay for a child to have kindergarten, but then it's offsetting the cost of going to work, and sometimes it's actually less than going to work. So in other words, they can go to work, but they would be paying more to have that kindergarten activity for somebody to watch their children. We have to address that if we're going to get our economy back on track. Again, it's how do we generate dollars in the local area, and that's going to be done by putting people to work, number one. And number two, how do we address the issue of having a qualified education as we move forward and have students ready and able to enter educations for the much needed future that we have. So yes, I would, Rita. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next question will start with Linda.
Glenn didn't get to answer it.
Oh, sorry.
Hello, everybody. I was just sitting here looking at my water thinking, wow, this is... Now, Jeff was talking about pre-K, and I thought we were here all on kindergarten, all-day kindergarten. I think that, and this is our philosophy philosophy in our home, but we actually homeschooled. And one of the reasons we did that is because we saw some of the issues in our community in Mason County, and we didn't want to put our children in that environment. And we also, I know a lot of the deputies that are out in the county won't put their children in that environment because there's certain issues in the schools right now. Children at a really young age, I think, need to spend a little bit more time with their parents than being away from the home all the time. K through 12, you know, I support funding schools. I support making education like, you know, the cornerstone of our future. That's where we need to focus. We need to make sure that these kids have a shot at a bright future. When I was younger, I'm not sure about Drew, but Linda and Jeff are probably in the same ballpark there. You know, we didn't have all-day kindergarten, but we managed to do quite well, and we had a lot higher graduation rate. I think we need to get back to focusing on the basics of education and keeping kids up to the standard. I've heard rumors and talked to parents in the community that say, well, they're going to graduate 150 kids from high school this year that couldn't pass the math test. And I'm wondering, why would we do that? Well, I think part of the reason is that they're trying to push them forward. They're trying to get the graduation numbers up there so they can continue to get federal funding. So I would rather focus on a little bit more accountability in the public school system. I'd like to see more of the money going into the classroom versus the 59 cents, you know, out of the dollar that Drew was talking about. If you look at state government, especially in education and in other areas, it's kind of like an upside down pyramid. You know, a lot of people are talking about, well, state employees get this, state employees get that, but really they're at the bottom of the pyramid, and they're the ones that usually are making the cost-saving suggestions to go up the chain, but they always hit a ceiling right there. So education's 46% of our budget. I'm thinking that we better make sure that we get a good quality product out of that large of a chunk of the budget.
Thank you. For the next question, we'll start with Linda. What is your position on the possible transport of as much as 150 tons of coal a year through the state of Washington by rail for shipment to Asia from ports on our coast?
I've been trying to catch up to that one. That was one that I was not as aware of when this campaign started. And as we all know, campaigns evolve and you get new questions. And I have, you know, read and I've talked to some of the individuals from Burlington Northern. I tend to think that I am against it at this point. The reality is the Chamber of Commerce did a reasonably good forum recently in Seattle talking about not only the impacts of the environment, which is something that is a different piece, but the impacts of having the grade crossings throughout the Puget Sound area blocked for much of the day and the impact that will have on other jobs in the area. In addition to that, and I think the first conversation is the one about the environment, and do we know what the impact of on the environment will be? In some respects, this is more a conversation about federal energy policy than it is about the 35th district. But if China has coal and we're shipping our coal to China, I guess I question that. If that same coal were burned in this country, it would be screened and monitored for air pollutants. If it's burned in China, it will not be screened and monitored for air pollutants. And the 35th district is actually in the drift pattern of the air that comes from China. We're already monitoring through ORCA for toxins coming into our area from China on the air currents, and I believe that this would contribute to that. There are additional questions about the actual transport of the coal and what that would mean in the various areas it's going through. I did have an opportunity to go and see some coal trains recently in the Santa Fe area, and so I understand a little bit more about the operation now. But as currently proposed, I think I'm against it.
Thank you. Jeff?
Well, as somebody that knows quite a bit about transportation infrastructure in this state and the transporting of a commodity like this, I can tell you that we don't have the infrastructure put in place right now to accommodate the type of activity that has been proposed, with the exception of one location, and that's up out of Bellingham, of which it seems like the city has taken a very hard stance, and in fact the county has taken a hard stance of doing that. But I think it needs to be said that 8 years ago, China put a call out to get this coal to the world. They have a demand, they have a rich demand for energy so that they can have their manufacturing base put intact. I'm pretty sure coal is going to leave North America somewhere. The question is does this leave the state of Washington or even Oregon or Canada? We're talking about jobs, we're talking about revenue that can be created from the transfer of the bulk commodity itself. Having said that, the environmental impact that could be wreaked on the whole world needs to be addressed. So as I go back and I address the issue of transportation infrastructure that this state would have to do in order to make that coal leave, that's going to be a question that is a legislative one, quite frankly, and one that I really look forward to address as we seriously look at the concerns on a worldwide basis and what impact that's going to leave, not just for us in the near term, but also over the short term. So there's some tough decisions that need to be made on this, and I look forward to looking at this question deeper as we move forward in the process.
Thank you. Glenn?
Energy right now is big business. And I believe, if I remember right, 40% of our own energy comes from the burning of clean coal. As far as exporting coal to China, I think first we should sell them the clean technology. If we're concerned about them polluting the environment, taking shortcuts, which is going to lower their energy costs, and we should try to get them on the same page as the U.S. You know, say, hey, clean coal is a good way to go. It's cheap energy. A big part of business and a big part of the cost of families at home right now is the high cost of energy. We had a president in the White House that said, you know what, he's going to make fuel and energy cost prohibitive, and it is impacting incomes and families in a really negative way. More money's going to fuel and electricity and coming off the grocery table. So I do support shipping coal to China. It's going to create jobs in the railroad industry, in the coal fields, at our ports, and you know, at the same time, we can talk to China about turning to a more efficient form of coal plant.
Thank you. Drew?
Thank you. I agree there are some federal issues that the federal government's going to need to weigh out, and when that's done, we as a state will look at where we're at, and I'll say that if the federal government, if this is going to move forward, and that is going to be an allowed export, and it is right now, but if we're not going to have other barriers that are there, then we as a state, if we decide, no, we're not going to allow that through our state, we're turning down jobs in this state. And I think that working with responsible companies, we can find the way to do this without impacting the environment in a negative manner. We're all for the environment. How can you be against it? So we need to work and find those right solutions. And our ports are facing serious issues right now with the widening of the Panama Canal, and railways are an excellent way to move cargo efficiently and with minimal impact to the environment. So I'm in favor of looking at this in a way that we can make it work.
Thank you. Okay, for our next question, we'll start with Jeff. In the next legislative session, do you see additional changes to public employee pay and benefits as necessary? For what changes would you advocate and why?
No, I don't see additional changes that need to be done for public employees. So when I start thinking about public employees, my immediate thought is those that protect and serve us, our police, our fire, and those in the service sector, such as our teachers. As I previously stated, we've cut a tremendous amount out of this budget over the last 8 years, and much of that has been the detriment of income and furloughs to some of our state employees that are out there. I come back to this notion of I'm concerned about our quality of life, and I'm concerned about our ability to provide for the community. I've also previously stated we have to look at all revenue streams to make sure that we have a budget by which we can actually move forward and address those concerns that I think that every citizen has. You know, it's about quality of life. It's about what are we doing to provide service for our citizenry. Teachers have already been cut. Furloughs have already been instituted. Do I see more drastic changes to make sure that, or to make that happen? I don't. I think that we're at that point to where if we continue to cut those services out of our system, then it's just going to denigrate more than what we currently have. So addressing funding mechanisms need to be addressed. We have to start looking at ways in which we can do that. Our firefighters this last year had options of a left 1 and a left 2. PERS 1 and PERS 2 is consistently an issue, and I work forward to fighting for all of those out there that are making sure our economy is not only safe, but educating all those for our future generations. So it can't be cut further than what it's already been cut.
Thank you. Glenn?
Well, that's kind of hitting close to home, isn't it? No, I've been working for the Department of Corrections now for 11 years. And in this last bargaining session, we went in there, and to avoid deferrals, we said, look, we're gonna voluntarily take a 3% pay cut. We know the money's not there, but don't put me out in the yard with 150 inmates and nobody to back me up, especially when we're getting a lot more violent inmates into the system. So for us, it was a big safety issue. We know that our medical premiums are steadily climbing up. So in 11 years, everything that I've seen as far as a raise, which was like a total of 5%, we lost 3%. And then the increase in our insurance just kind of flattened out. So our wages are pretty much flat. Cost of living skyrocketing, but we're flat. So, and that's the same thing in the private sector. Wages are flat. Some people that have gone back to work are working for far less than they worked in the past. So as cost of living increases, wages go down or stay flat, you see a bigger disparity in the classes. So I wouldn't really support a cut, but I would strongly suggest that state employees get together and talk to management and say, hey, look, there's a lot of things that we can do to be more efficient in state government.
Thank you. Drew?
First of all, I don't have a vendetta against state employees. The rank and file, those that are going to work every day and doing their job, that's not where our issue is. And again, I'll go back, we need to grow the business base in the state and create more revenue through that. And I think we need to look at the upper bureaucratic management that is in state government that is pervasive and start there. If we're going to make cuts in that capacity, that's where it needs to be, and not in our rank and file employees that are doing their job every day. I'd also go back to my time in the Navy. We had a program, I'm sure it's still in existence today, that paid a pretty handsome reward to anybody that could come up with a more efficient way to do something. And if that's saved in that program, I believe, if my memory is correct, you got a 30% cut, a 30% paycheck of cost savings. So if you found a program that saved the Navy $1 million, regardless of your rank, you were looking at a pretty healthy bonus for having done that. And looking at programs like that within the state and incentivizing our workers to find cost-effective ways to do it, I think is part of the solution.
Thank you. Linda?
And I think your question was about the state, not so much about local government. As a retired police officer, I know what it's like on the local level to work with not enough people. I used to work patrol up on Federal Way by myself on graveyard shift because during that period of time, King County didn't have enough staff. And frankly, it was dangerous, not just for the employee, but for our citizens. When we're talking about the state, I would hope that we would be towards the end of some really bad times. Now, we've gone through a catastrophic series of economic events that I don't think were particularly anticipated. And hopefully we're at a point where we're through the layoff cycle, we can take a breath, we can look for efficiencies, we can look for better ways to do business, but we can do that with a way of ensuring that our public employees continue to get a good package of wages and benefits. Very candidly, if you want to grow business, you want your state and local employees to have good jobs because they're a big part of the people that spend money in businesses and drive our economy. It's not just that they're taking money from the economy, it is that they reinvest that money in our economy.
Thank you. Our next question will start with Glenn. In the next session, how would you support the growth of jobs in the state of Washington?
I would look at sponsoring some bills that would target small business owners. I think we need to streamline the B&O tax. I think that those small business owners should have a right to deductions as far as the cost of running their business, their employees, the products that they keep on their shelves if they're that type of business. Also, like I said before, I'd like to see an offer made by the state that says, hey, you know what, we need jobs in this state and we need people that are going to hire employees and put them to work. I'd like to see them say, we're going to give you a 3-year break from taxes. We're going to let you start out with a free and clean slate. You're not going to have to worry about paying taxes for 3 years, which is usually the critical time for any new business to get up and running, and then give them a head start. Encourage the entrepreneur out there. Try to cut some of the regulation and red tape.
Thank you. Drew?
Again, I go back to let's get the regulatory environment to be less on the backs of small business and allow them to grow and hire. They represent the majority of the workforce in this country, and we need to get government out of the way and allow them to grow. And I'm not, looking at the B&O tax as a business owner. I've come to understand that it's beneficial to some industries and it's horrible for other industries, and we do need to address that. And I'd like to see a program similar to what Glenn was saying, that have a 2-3 year period that as a startup company, you're exempt from the B&O tax if you're operating at a loss, and give those companies time to get going and get their feet on the ground and produce.
Thank you. Linda?
I think there are both short and long-term strategies that we want to look at in the legislature. About 75% of the new jobs do come from small business, and we need to look at projects and programs. I think we've seen some good local projects from the Economic Development Councils working with our trade and technical institutions to encourage and support business planning for small businesses. Really funding some of that properly and getting that going. I think the other critical part of what we're going to be in the future is how we address education. If we make educational excellence our #1 priority and are able to understand and track what is happening in the job market, we can train our students to be the best thing Washington State's got going in terms of attracting jobs of the future.
Thank you. Jeff?
Well, all of us have laid out a pretty good idea as far as how to bring and promote jobs in the area. Again, I've had some experience in this over the last 3 years. And some of the things here, as I said, have been good. As far as an exemption or perhaps streamlining the B&O tax to help our small businesses, making it productive or at least a healthy environment for them to work. But look, I've seen this within our own incubator programs at the Port of Olympia, to where we've given incentives or breaks for a small business to come in, entice them into the area, to where we've offered all sorts of sweeteners, if you will, for them to have a wonderful environment to growth. But at the end of the day, every single one of them says we don't have a qualified workforce. We don't have people that are specialized in the type of jobs that they would like to have done here. We have to go back to our community colleges. We have to address the issues of community and technical education so that we can have a qualified workforce to address these issues. Let businesses know we have a wonderful environment, not just for business, for them to prosper, a great community for them to live in, but more importantly, there's people that are qualified to do the jobs in which they're hoping to attract in the area.
Thank you. Now it's time for our concluding statements, and we'll begin with Drew.
Thank you, Rita, and thank you again to the League of Women's Voters for hosting this. Sincerely appreciate it and the opportunity to speak to the voters. And I'm going to take my background and the lessons I've learned through my time in the Navy and my time owning a business, and take those lessons and that discipline to Olympia and work on your behalf every day, and never forget that it is the people that send the representative to office and no one else. And that will always be first and foremost on my mind in any vote I take. The 35th District will come first. And I appreciate your support and your vote, and look forward to hearing from you. It's been a pleasure with all of those that I have met on the trail and on doorsteps. And again, appreciate your support and your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda?
Again, I'm Linda Ring Erickson, and I am also running in the 35th District. I'm a retired law enforcement officer, and at the end of second term as a county commissioner, I have a long record of addressing problems and solving them. I know that the issues that face our community now are very, very difficult, and we need people who can make clear statements about what the problems are, engage others from both sides of the aisle to join them in solving those problems, and help move our state, and particularly the 35th District, forward into the future. I live and I work in the 35th District. This job will be my only commitment, and I will be here to listen to you. I would appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff?
And thank you, Rita. My conviction to run for this office is built on a couple different things. If elected, and I'm allowed to go to Olympia, the moral compass that I'm going to bring when a bill or a piece of legislation is brought before me is fairly simple. Will this bill help the American worker, or at least the workers in Washington State? If it does, then I'll pass it up. If it doesn't, not only will I vote it down, but I'm going to fight against it. Will this bill or piece of legislation address the needs that we have as far as our education? Again, if it does, then I will pass it. If it doesn't, then I will fight against it. And last thing, it comes down to fiscal responsibility. We have to address the needs of our budget right now. If we don't, then it comes down to an issue of quality of life, the assurances that government has over its citizens to at least protect them. And I can assure you that I'm going to be an advocate for all those issues as we move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Glenn?
Right now, the biggest issue we face, and I think everybody will agree, is our economy and our unemployment rate. I really want to see small businesses grow and flourish in this state. I really want to see jobs being created. I want people to have the confidence to go out on the weekend and enjoy themselves or make a purchase of a new vehicle, whatever it is that they want to do. I want to see those revenues come back, and I think the best way to do that is to have a strong economy with a lot of consumer confidence in it. Our education system is in pretty sad shape. When kids finish high school, after 12 years, I want to see them leaving the school with a toolbox full of things that will help them either succeed in the workplace or move on to higher education. I think we're failing there at this time. So really, the focus would be on our children. What do we want for them in the future? Do we want a strong economy and a great education system, or are we going to leave them the current system that we have right now?
Thank you. This brings us to the end of our forum. Thank you, candidates, and thank you, TCTV and the League, for making this forum possible. Viewers, we hope when you vote in the primary on August 7th, this information will help you make an informed decision about the candidates for Position 2 in the 35th Legislative District. Thank you for watching.